This week on RSBANDB Update, rewards from Extinction are expanded with more worthwhile skilling on Iaia and a passive Ring of Vigour. We also meet RuneScape's new keeper for the first time and delve into a classic livestream Q&A. This is RSBANDB Update, episode 880, recorded Wednesday, April 27th, 2022. Keep her calm and carry on. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of RSBANDB Update. Welcome back, Tanis.
Thank you, Shay.
Also joining us this week is Thaxi. Welcome back. I think we last had you on the Abyssal Scourge episode.
Yeah, back again. We had some combat changes and
something very interesting this week, combat-wise, that informed some stuff we were doing. We'll get to that in fair time, but. If you're joining us for the first time, RSBANDB Update talks about the RuneScape news of the week, the updates, as it were, and we got, and you know, I think in large part most people are happy with what we got this week, the Extinction rewards update. We also have a Q&A from the new executive producer, Mod Keeper. And, of course, we'll also be talking about the Treasure Hunter and augment changes, amongst other things, as we progress through this week's show. So, Tanis, how are you feeling with what we got this week?
You know, I'm kind of two minds. I think that they are improved, and of course, the combat stuff is just peachy. You know. That's
is it?
Good. I just, you know, I was expecting something different.
Okay. Well, let's get into
I think expectations kind of messed me up with this a little bit.
Fair enough.
And that's where I'm at. Yeah.
All right. What about you, Thaxi?
Oh yeah. I mean, they made the rewards that, like, previously, effectively the reward was you got 900,000 experience, which, let's be frank, is still pretty good.
Yeah.
Now they've actually made the other rewards usable, and the Ring of Vigour is lovely.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. All right.
I like it. There's more to come, apparently. So,
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's dive in. Post-quest skilling station XP has been increased, and the amount of resources required for conversion has been reduced. And if you already had your skilling station set up, you enter the Dream of Iaia, and you would get a boost from what you previously had, so you wouldn't be penalized from building beforehand. And the changes we're talking about here, previously it was a 10-to-1 XP ratio, now it's a 10-to-5 XP ratio, which when you simplify that down is, of course, 2-to-1, 2 resources to 1 XP. And you can now store up to 350,000 XP in your skilling station. So with that, that's 700,000 worth of your Anachronia resources you could dump into your skilling station of choice. And it buffs up to 135k XP instead of the base 15k if you did that beforehand. And they say this equates to about 43,000 XP per day over the selected skills if storage is kept up.
Yeah. I think because the base camp fills up every 10.5 days, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
If you've got max rank on it. So this means that once every, if you're putting XP into all the stations, they'll fill up within 50 days. You'd have full stations to go and AFK, and then AFKing those full stations down would take you like 6 hours.
Yeah.
So 50 days, 6 hours.
And the question, of course, at the end of this all is this still enough to get the lore fragments and other potential drops? But we'll talk about how those were buffed as well. With this, and I just have to say, I think this is where the two minds thing comes into play, Tanis. Like, for me, where I'm at, maxed 99s, I feel that this isn't necessarily a game changer for me, except for, you know, getting the lore stuff and maybe some XP if I decided to go for a 120 hunter or something. But on the other hand, if I was to decide on my skilling pier, which is still a level 3. That's a decision I make. So I handicap myself. So I won't be doing City of Sentistina anytime soon on that, unless I decide to throw that rule out the window and then progress through to Extinction. I would be over the moon for the free XP in skills like fletching, crafting, construction, hunter that this brought. If I didn't have 99s and I had done this quest. That's how I'd be looking at that if I didn't have 99s and I had just finished this quest.
I mean, even post 99s, it gives you pet chance, you know.
True.
I don't think there's lower than 99s would even be interacting with this.
Well, I mean, when you look at the level requirements for Extinction and such, it's not a quest that max players should do. Only.
Right, but we also know that those level requirements are hidden in the quest requirements.
My alt, who has a quest cape minus this quest, because I've not gone back and done it on my alt yet. I've been waiting on that. My alt has about 80-ish for most non-combat stats.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to get used to this. I mean, that's a grand total of like 2 mil, so I've got 10 mil XP to gain in a lot of these skills.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll get some use out of it for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like everything here is just amplified up to a point where it actually feels useful now with this. Whereas before it was kind of just token XP, dare I say it.
I mean, it was token XP, and it wasn't worth the time to come and drop the XP off, frankly.
Yeah. Exactly.
But the thing that is kind of worth noting about that is that the way that they've changed it, the XP, it equates out to 360,000-ish, 350,000 XP per hour. Of when you actually go and spend time there, right?
Yeah.
So you add a little bit of time to go and drop off your resources to fill it up, whatever. But it's that XP rate for some of the skills is really competitive XP wise in terms of all of the any gathering skills, and then for all of most of those skills, kind of hunter might be the exception there, but fletching and construction and herblore, it's a fully AFK method that costs nothing. I mean, it costs a little bit of time, but assuming you have your base camp set up and running and you don't need the resources elsewhere, it's a no cost herblore. It's that saves you a good bit of coin.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I do like it. And
we need to be clear, we're not calling this a skilling method. This is very clearly a quest reward.
This is a D&D. This is, it shouldn't have ever been called a skilling method if this is kind of the implementation of it is time gated. If it was a place that we could go and actually, get nodes and obtain resources of any variety, then that would be a skilling method. If it gave us base camp resources, regardless of how useless they might be, but decent experience, like something akin to the Ark, that would be a skilling method.
Would be a skilling
method. This is a D&D. Yeah. This is a D&D.
Yeah. Totally agree. And the one thing, and this is actually part of its design, so this isn't like a I mean, I don't know what this is. I know it's a critique, but it's just that it's a bummer that something I don't really have any use for or don't really want to interact with, which has been the base camp, I would have to do for this reward to mean anything to me. And that's just kind of a bummer.
It's true. I mean, that's the other thing is
because you pretty much want to do this after your base camp is upgraded, right?
Well, if you don't have your base camp upgraded, you only have 10 workers. If you only have the base camp,
okay.
So you get 1/6 as much XP, so that 43k becomes 7k.
Okay.
7k a day is, and your coffers are much smaller, so you have to actually go more frequently. It would be a hassle to do it without upgrading, and much. I mean, it'd be not worth it.
So in regards to many things, then it's kind of like a sliding scale, then.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
I want to.
It's an in-game reward.
It is, and
but again, my alt, which over the course of 3 months got Anachronia, so I have the base camp fully upgraded on my alt, minus all of the resource things. And again, that another reason to come to this is that it does drop the upgrade resources for the Anachronia base camp. So yeah, it does drop your essential oils and your dinosaur hides and tooth and rib bones, and so my alt will be using this to obtain those rather than running 5 billion laps on that lovely agility course, which is a great agility course. It's just not.
You can say you don't like it if you.
80 laps was enough. That's what I'm going to say. Okay. 80 laps was enough.
Also, I want to give you a virtual high five because you're putting the show exactly where I want to go next. Thank you, Thatch.
Go on.
I want to talk about the upgraded drops from this.
Sure.
I was blown away with what I got. And
you got the shooty straw.
I did. And I sold it. I sold it for 5 mil at the time. I just lost it yesterday when we were talking about this and the fact you can cosmetic override any range two-handed with it. Just the idea of running around and doing this instead of using a bow is absolutely hilarious to me, but that's beside the point. The drop table, when you're skilling, can give you mush for your farm or dinosaur farm, laboratory relics from the Dragonkin lab, common, uncommon, rare, of course, the blowpipe pieces, and compacted Anachronia resources, plus the dinosaur rib bone, tooth, essential oils, and dinosaur pelt at a very rare chance. And plus all the ranch out of time animals as well, which I think needed to happen for this because I was looking at animals not too long ago, and just some of these animals were, stupidly rare in terms of the prices that you would have to pay for them. So I'm glad that that they brought these in.
Well, I think most of the dinosaur eggs were 5 to 10 mil.
Yeah.
And of course, the sub-variants of the dinosaurs were on the Grand Exchange, but not actually obtainable in game. So people could just use them. I would be unsurprised if a couple people made some max cash stacks Monday morning by selling dinosaurs because somebody had been just storing a max cash stack in one of those dinosaur offers because they can't physically complete. But
yeah.
Anyways,
overall, I'm very pleased with the drop table on this. Just in terms of the alchables that you get, and
it's more sources of alchables, which
we have to, of course, question in this day and age.
We do, but obviously they can't. Like, I wouldn't have been terribly mad if they'd replaced all those alchables with just mush.
Oh yeah.
Like they're in there because in theory we're floating in a fluid tube while we're in the stream,
dreaming of Dragonkin.
Yeah, and there's Dragonkin relics apparently floating through us with this fluid. I don't know, dude. Whatever. There's some vague explanation. They just wanted to give us money, which, I think I made a total of 700k from about 700k experience. So it seems like it's, unless you get lucky with some of those rare relics, about 1-to-1 for XP for GP. So it's like, it's not that, it's like 300k an hour. It's bad money.
It's bad, but
so it's fine.
But it's, I'm going to look at this from the Iron Man perspective as well. The mush is good. The relics are good for
the Iron Man. The animals, yeah. Yeah. Because for especially hardcore Iron Men that had to do killing those Slayer dinosaurs is a hard no. It's not a hard no, but that's spooky. And or if even you wanted to just be a skiller or whatever.
Or even just spending that much time at Big Game Hunter.
Yeah, those eggs are expensive with big game hunter points or expensive, obnoxious to obtain. And so having an extra source of dinosaurs is amazing for them. Yeah. But then there's also, you missed one of those.
Yeah, I was going to come back to the necklace of Salamander right now.
Ta-da! Transitions.
A little salamander that you can put around your neck. Golden Salamander, 15% accuracy and damage buff while fighting dinosaur-type enemies, and a 3% rarity drop boost from dinosaurs and the Rex Matriarchs. And no, it does not work on Raksha.
Yeah. it's a lovely damage boost. It is best in slot damage wise against the creatures it works on. And I think I'm not quite sure, but like purely cosmetically, without attaching any meaning to necklaces or value or whatever they are, I think it's one of the coolest looking necklaces in the game to just have a salamander chilling wrapped around your neck. Like, the little dude's a bro. Like if I got one of these, I would be very tempted to
keepsake it. Yeah.
To keepsake it, but I want the transmog because it also allows you to transform into a little yellow salamander, which apparently, and I have not been able to confirm this, but apparently you can actually move while transformed. It's one of the only transforms other than the Gobi disguise kit.
Oh, the lizard people are taking over.
Exactly. That allows you to move while transformed. So it's really cool. It's also, if you get it from what we were... Somebody had found a drop rate for it that's on the wiki, and, this early I don't know the source or whatever, but based on that drop rate, it sounded like if you did this daily, it would be a 1 in 5 months drop.
It's direct from Mod Sponge, 1 in 500 when rolling for materials at the skilling stations.
Got it. So I did some math in public chat. Also, the public chat, which is cool, they made the public chat for the area wide. So anybody at any of the stations can talk to anybody else, regardless of how far away you are.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it is. So we did some public chat math on Monday when everybody was there AFKing. And from the rates we were getting, it seemed like you rolled about... If the rate you got XP, it would be about 25 material packs per week. So it would be about 20 weeks, about 4 to 5 months to roll the necklace. Or with your starting XP, if you had all 6 stations, it's like a 10 to 15% chance. So it's...
Boy, we're lucky this is untradeable. Otherwise, that would have a huge price associated with it.
Maybe, but again, most people probably still want to be using their Amulet of Souls because all the dinosaurs that this thing works on hit pretty hard. And so you want that buff to Soul Split or to your Protection Prayers, depending on what you're using.
Yeah.
But it is, it's potential.
But once again,
Rex
Matriarchs were designed for mid-level, or rather entry-level to PVM content.
And they still do
15% accuracy and damage buff there is wonderful.
That's true. And we should mention while we're talking about it, too, that it is currently always lost on death. So it shouldn't be taken to any of those places, because I imagine that will get patched. If you have one, please don't lose it. Because, again, 20 weeks to get this thing back, it's going to be really obnoxious. You can read like that. I would be very sad if I lost one of these. So just keep that in mind. If you gain one of these, that maybe for now it's just a cool little yellow salamander transformation or a nice cosmetic to wear around, but I don't know that I would take it with me to combat.
Yeah, right, especially if you don't want to, wind up accidentally dying or disconnecting and, getting smacked by lightning at Fentraken, or even any of the Slayer dinosaurs, let's just say.
Yeah, the Slayer dino specs will knock you out. So,
all right. So that's most of the Dream of Iaia buffs that were done with that. The next one is something everybody who has done the quest can benefit from, Iaia or otherwise. The Pontifex Shadow Ring can now be imbued after finishing the quest, which increases the drop rates of unique items in the Elder God Wars dungeon by 2%. And if you have overcharged the ring, this is a passive, according to Mod Sponge.
Yay, cool.
I feel like this is a big deal, but I might be overselling it, I think.
Well, those drops aren't that big of a deal anymore, right?
Well, no.
Drops
if you're doing like hard mode Zuck or hard mode Glacier, yeah.
Or hard mode Carapac.
Yeah.
These are the
new God Wars.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant
did I say God Wars 2? I meant the Elder God Wars dungeon.
Okay.
Yeah, Elder. So this is like your fractured staff pieces and your Glacier weapons and Crypt Bloom. 2% is not huge, but a free 2% buff is a free 2% buff. You know what I'm saying? That's not bad.
Yeah,
we take those
exactly.
And then The imbued version got, there's another benefit on it too, right?
Teleport to the effigy incubator, as well as they increase the luck from tier 2 to tier 3. Also improve the divination benefits and all the other sprite benefits as well.
Oh, I didn't realize they'd improve the other benefits.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. The teleport, that was the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, and,
nice.
I feel like we got a good selection in terms of skilling rings here now with this. In all honesty.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So
honestly, it being tier 3 is nice. It's basically it'll give you. I think that'll activate for most skilling things, right? Like that's most skilling things will have the ability to activate that. The only thing that would be a problem would be like if you had a Grace of the Elves and you had your Saren Spirit that was trying to give you a Hazelmere Signet.
Yeah, and it's called the.
Got to roll the luck.
It's now called the. We have so remember this ring started out with a simple archaeology relic in as an Andra's Quest, and it's just blown up since then. It's now a +3 prayer bonus, tier 3 luck, 3% divination XP, up from 1%. Chronicle fragment spawn rate, raw opportunity spawn rate, Tannis if you're doing any more mining, and time sprite stuff. So. This goes in the mining tool belt. And what is it that you need to get the rare drop table on Saren Spirits? Is it 3 or 4 luck?
So you can't physically roll a Hazelmere Signet Ring without having
without luck of the
luck.
dwarves. Okay.
Tier 4, yeah.
Okay. Got it. Understood. So if you're skilling, you'd probably still want to run the luck of the dwarves relic power and then just use this as the skilling ring. To have that
the skilling benefits are good. So
yeah, and maybe this is the true story, and not necessarily the Iaia stuff. Maybe this is the true reward from the quest.
I didn't realize that they'd buffed the skilling portions of it, and those are some relatively hefty buffs. I mean, the ring was worth wearing for some skilling before. Now it's definitely up there. I mean, yeah. So. The ring is. I mean, talking about rings, they've done some good stuff with this release. They made one ring useful, and
they made one ring completely off the charts. Tannis, anything else on skilling stuff or Iaia? Because I feel like
I think we covered it pretty well. It's the newest D&D weekly.
Yeah. And I swear, all these wonderful transitions weren't planned because we have to talk about rings. Because the Ring of Vigour can now be converted into a passive effect. It's just this one innocent line in the patch notes, folks. That's all it is here, but it's a pretty darn big deal to the point that we actually ran our micro lesson this week on this. And normally we talk about the micro lesson at the end of the segment, but I think I'm going to run the micro lesson now, and then we'll come back and discuss that. But before we get into that, I'll just say that if you have the Ring of Vigour, go talk to Vicindithus inside the effigy incubator room. He'll give you a warp gem. Use the warp gem. It will consume the Ring of Vigour, and then now you have this passive vigor effect everywhere. And with that, I'm going to run the micro lesson from this week. In this micro lesson, you'll learn about the new Vigor passive effect and ultimate rotations in RuneScape. A micro lesson is a short and to-the-point video that teaches you a single concept. This time, one of our combat and PVM experts, Thaxi, who's a teacher on the Raid FC staff, is going to teach us about adrenaline management.
This microlesson is designed for a slightly more advanced audience than our early microlessons, for players who are manually activating their thresholds and ultimates. If you're not there yet, you should still have something to learn from this lesson, and maybe this lesson can be motivation to go out and try this with the new toys available this week. This week, the Ring of Vigour was made available as a passive, so let's talk about how to use the Vigor buff in a combat rotation. Very simply, the Vigor effect reduces the base cost of ultimates and special attacks by 10% of their starting value, and applies itself before other cost reduction buffs. To use the Vigor well, you also need to have an understanding of ultimate rotations. We're going to talk through this using a simple 1-minute timeline, with each tick on the timeline representing 6 seconds. We'll use ranged as an example, but the same setup can be applied to magic or melee, just substituting in the respective abilities. Put very simply, the highest damage part of our rotation happens when our damage boosting ultimate is active, and the weakest part of our ultimate is right after we use it, when we've just spent all of our adrenaline and we aren't able to use thresholds yet. That's where buffs like the Vigor and the Conservation of Energy or Heightened Senses Archaeology relics come in. These effects leave us with some extra adrenaline after we use an ultimate. Having some extra adrenaline after we use our ultimates allows us to fire off those threshold abilities several abilities earlier, helping us capitalize on the time we spent in our ultimate. Couple these with the Adrenaline Potion or the Limitless ability, and we can begin using thresholds again within just a few seconds of activating our ultimate. See how short that early damage trough becomes with this? Also notice that when we added these things to our rotation, something else becomes available at the end of our ultimate. Our 20-second cooldown thresholds have started to come off cooldown again. And this is huge because it means that we get a second round of those thresholds during our ultimate rotation. That's the true value of early adrenaline, because it means the majority of our thresholds will be activated during our ultimate. The last thing to bring up with this is the Planted Feet perk. Planted Feet is a switch, and I know that's a dirty word for a lot of people, but it's also the single most powerful invention perk in the right hands. If active when we use Sunshine or Death's Swiftness, it extends our ultimate by 8 seconds. On its own, that doesn't sound huge, but again, the true value is in extending that threshold window, usually allowing us to use 2 to 3 additional thresholds under our ultimate, letting us dip into even a double round of those 30-second cooldown thresholds or special attacks. Using this as a framework, we should finish our ultimate with around 50% adrenaline, leaving us with 20 seconds to use a threshold or 2 while we build back adrenaline to be ready for our next ultimate. As always, remember these micro-lessons are intentionally brief. There are so many versions of an ultimate rotation to fit your situation, and this is just an example of a commonly used rotation on a stationary attackable target. If you have any questions about specific situations or other adrenaline management tools, feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you liked the video, leave it a like, and if you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button.
Questions, comments? I mean, you wrote the thing, so I'm mainly directing that at you, Tanis.
No, I thought it was really informative. I get it, even though I'm definitely a beginner, and I don't even know if you could call me that. So yeah, no, I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, I think my biggest realization for this is that the Ring of Vigour was there, and it was always there as a switch, 50,000 Dungeoneering credits, which is relatively cheap, but I never had this, and I did some playing around with it after we did the micro lesson and got the reward, combined it with Conservation of Energy, as you wrote in your micro lesson, and it's actually really noticeable. Anything you want to expand on or carry on with, Taxi?
Kind words, Dennis. But yeah, I mean, it's a relatively large buff, and it really does make a huge difference to get that second round of thresholds off, right? Because those carry so much of our damage rotation. And just as to note on the change itself, like, I think this is I like this change because I think it's well calculated across different levels of play. The people at the very high end get 1 extra inventory slot to like bring some food or an adrenaline urn or something, but it doesn't necessarily it doesn't add to power creep necessarily. But the people in the kind of the middle tier that are doing, ultimate rotations and manually activating thresholds, those kind of things, those kind of combat people in that combat bracket are, they'll benefit a lot from this, I think. If you can use it correctly, implementing it right makes an incredible difference in your rotation.
Yeah, it did. I really felt it.
And even for folks that are full revolution, especially since it's now not a switch, they'll probably, even people on Revolution might get 1 extra snapshot or wild magic if they've got their bars set up right. Hey, we've got a micro lesson on that too if you're interested. But that's with those kind of well set up bars that have those thresholds early on a bar for even Revolution, you'll get good use out of this, being even just a passive. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I think it does a good thing to kind of make combat feel smoother for people in middle and lower tiers without adding a bunch of power creep at the high end of things. And I do like that. It also kind of removes some of those switches, which annoy the crap out of a lot of people, and just makes life a little more simple, straightforward for people. So,
yeah, and you did bring up the Planet Feet switch as well, as something that you can work into this if you want to, replace one switch for another. But I mean, hey, maybe you're just adding that in for the first time if these are new to you. But I
mean, if you're using a Ring of Vigor, I think you were probably using a Planted Feet before.
Yeah,
but maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe, and it's going to be really interesting because we're recording this before this has the micro lesson has gone fully live. It's going to be interesting to see what the reaction is to this, just from the ultimate rotation side of it. Because Ring of Vigor on its own is interesting, but the wider topic is, of course, those ultimate rotations. And I think the thing that struck me the most with the micro lesson was that we were there discussing Ring of Vigor, but at the same time, it just flowed so nicely into ultimate rotations. And then once you get that idea of ultimate rotations in your head, you see all these different spots where Ring of Vigor would make sense. So,
and I'll openly admit that I kind of glossed over the second half of the Ring of Vigor effect, which is that 10% decreased cost on special attacks and Essence of Finality attacks. We will be mentioning that, I think, in one of our upcoming micro lessons. I think that fits nicely in a slightly separate topic.
Yep.
But attaching them both together didn't seem incredibly necessary. So
yeah, and the micro lessons say that if you have any questions about any of the things that we mention in the micro lesson, if it's something like a piece of equipment, wiki. If it's a question of how you might apply this to your case, comments, Discord, rsbnb.com/Discord.
Yeah. I mean, for my piece, I didn't normally bother to equip my Ring of Vigor to save 3% adrenaline when I used like an SGB out of, special. So, this will be a small buff for people that were not being really sweaty with their rotations. But, from that second part of things. But
yeah, it makes sense.
And I will say too, you mentioned it before the micro lesson, but I just want to do another shout out that I love that the lore team has just kind of made Vicky our go-to like science boy. He is the sad dragonkin science boy now, and I'm here for it. I'm just really here for it.
Yeah.
So
it's a wonderful character.
Shout out to our boy Vicky, chilling in the effigy incubator.
Hey, maybe Jagex can get a show going on, and we can have Vicky the science guy.
Vicky the Science Dragonkin, thank you very much.
Or that, that would work too.
But yeah, no. It's just, I found this lying around in my lab. Thanks, bro.
Yeah,
good stuff.
Perfect. All right. Anything else from either of you on Vigor and the micro lesson before we move on?
I'm good.
All right. I'm going to take that as a cue to go on then from this and get to the rest of the patch notes with this. Necklace of Salamancy. They added these effects to it this week. Apparently, you could just get it in as it was a transmog before this.
No, it was available in the Grand Exchange, but it was not obtainable.
Okay. Fair enough.
For a year now. It was a year and 4 days since they added it to the GE. Don't ask me why.
Interesting. Fair enough. A bank chest and additional NPCs have also been added to the Dream of Iaia environment. And, you mentioned the fact that you can actually talk with community members and such when you're there. But the additional NPCs they're talking about with this is, of course, the Hot Tub Dragonkin.
Hot Tub Boy Dragonkin?
Sorry, not Dragonkin. Dragon Rider.
Yeah, Dragon Rider. Close enough.
Yeah, I meant to.
The giant guy. There we go.
The guy who was there.
Hot Tub Boy.
Just waiting for the world to end.
He's just man, full chill, which is interesting because didn't he say he wasn't? I'm not going to question.
I don't know.
Hot Tub Boy exists. That's all that matters.
And in reality, that's what that patch note served to say, because that's the NPC everybody's probably gonna go and see what that.
Yeah. I don't remember if they added anybody else there.
No, but he's the most important, obviously.
It's true, and they did tell us this week too how we get some of the past keeper stories. I don't know if we mentioned that, but I don't think it's in the patch notes.
No, we didn't mention that, and I guess now is a good time to do that.
Yeah.
The story changes the more you skill, and it's just a progression. With the more you skill there, eventually the story will unlock. And the dialogue for each of the NPCs at the skilling stations will change based on how much you've skilled. And it happens over time, we're led to believe. Though I don't know if anybody in Clan Quest has got one yet. So
I don't think anybody's gotten a full story. Again, public chat while I was there, apparently a couple people got changes to the dialogue from them. The way that this was kind of understood to me is that each XP drop you get has a chance to award story progress, and each story progress will change, or I don't know how, maybe a set of story dialogues? I don't know. At some point during your story progress, the dialogue will change for the NPC at the appropriate skilling station.
Yeah.
Which all of mine still say the same thing, and I didn't talk to them during the set, but after doing now 150,000 XP at each station, they all have the exact same dialogue, and I don't know if it's the base dialogue or not. I should look at the wiki to see if the transcript page probably. But so small worry about how long that's going to take, but we'll see.
There's also, we don't know what the number is on this, but training there over time unlocks the Amber Haze and Iaia Surface skyboxes.
Yeah. I'm excited for that. We needed some more like nice, vibrant, warm skyboxes that weren't aggressive.
I'm wondering how this one will work for you, Tanis, because it's like imagine you turn Night Shift or something on your device. That's kind of what it does to the RuneScape game.
Well, who knows? Because I don't know how I feel about having that. See, if it's really helpful, then that would be a bummer.
Yeah,
that it's locked behind everything.
Content, yeah,
and locked behind who knows how much skilling.
It seems very similar to the Menaphos skybox that is available to everyone to me. The difference being that the Menaphos skybox has a very small fog distance set on it naturally. So you actually have your field of view is much shorter if you are on a smaller draw distance. So your draw distance, the way that the fog distance works in the game, if you're on a small, the fog comes a certain distance away from whatever your draw distance is. So if your draw distance is set to max, you're on a really good computer, you can see very far. But if your draw distance is set to minimum and there's a big fog thing, you actually get a very small section of the world that you can see through the fog. The fog actually obscures a ton of the world. So I actually don't use the Menaphos one because I play on a potato. But it's a nice, vibrant skybox, and the Menaphos and the Iaia ones seem similar to that to me, just with a much lower fog distance on them.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think that's going to be something people are going to go for as well. So, who knows where that is going to be? I've been doing Iaia daily because at this point, it's something for me to do, and I want to unlock the stories, but I also want to see where we're going to get to, or rather, when I'm going to get the skyboxes as well. So we'll keep everybody in the loop on that about when that arrives. So
hopefully, fingers crossed for me that it's like 1 million total XP.
That would be interesting. That would be.
I think I'm sitting at 900k right now.
Okay, so you should know in a little while then.
Within a day or two. Yeah, I would.
Okay. Moving on, fixed an issue where the player could get soft locked after dying during phase 3 of the Saren boss fight.
Oops.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what they mean by soft locked. I guess unable to progress the quest.
Yeah, unable to progress either the quest or unable to leave the location where you're currently at. So,
fair enough.
Cool.
Dialogue between the player and Azanadra on the Glacier front will no longer be interrupted by the glacites. Yeah. NPCs have been removed from the Elder Halls at the state where the player finishes the Erebus puzzle. Mm-hmm. Cannon fire sound effects are no longer present once the war in Sentistan has concluded. And they say the coast is clear, folks.
Yeah, very briefly at the end of the quest. I wonder if that stays. Have you been back to check if that's...
No, I haven't. I haven't.
Because I know that I think they're probably going to do the same thing that they did with God Wars 1 and 2, where they're like, this is the frozen state of the war.
Right.
That you step out of time when you enter the dungeon.
Yeah. Then by that logic, you'd probably still be able to hear it.
Yeah, it's kind of what I'm imagining is that you're still going to be able to hear it. But
yeah. Players are no longer guaranteed to receive a construction strange rock when interacting with the stonemason after completing Extinction, and there were various typo fixes as well. Sweet with that. So,
cool.
That's the Extinction patch note. Favorites, Tanis?
Even though I don't use it, I have it, and I have to say the Ring of Vigour is the biggest. I mean, that's the patch of the week,
that's right? That's the combat one, yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I'm a big fan of the changes they made to the Shadow Ring.
Okay.
I think the teleport to Iaia, again, because it is now a weekly, having a teleport to go directly there is really nice.
It's also a teleport directly to your effigy incubator monthly if you haven't finished that yet.
Mm-hmm. And just a good, just general, the skilling updates are nice.
Okay.
It's a big deal.
And
obviously, also the Iaia stuff is now useful.
That's going to be mine, the Iaia stuff. And really gets me thinking if I want to limit the ult to being just a skill peer. But we'll see.
I have a strong feeling that if you ever decide to unskill pure, it will be for the sake of a quest or a number of quests.
Yeah.
So
exactly. Because one thing I've always wanted to do is I've always wanted to just take a weekend and play through the entire Plague series in one weekend.
I mean, it's a lot of Underground Pass, Shane, and I love Underground Pass, but that's a lot of Underground Pass.
That's a lot of mornings there in turn.
I mean, the light puzzle's not bad if you read a guide.
That's true.
Gasp. Actually, even without a guide, because we don't take damage from the shadows anymore, and agility training is now...
When did they change that?
Oh, they didn't. But Shane, we're not wearing tier 60 armor when we go through there anymore. You're wearing the way that evolution of combat works, those shadows have gotten a lot. They don't do a lot of damage when they do hit you, and they don't hit you very often anymore. All
right, fair enough.
You can completely ignore them with an Excalibur, so...
Amazing. All right, we're going to move on, and we're going to talk about Mod Keeper. We're going to find out if he's a keeper, and I bet that's the pun they were wanting us to make.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that was the full intent of this man's name. There's nothing else that he could potentially be keeping at all. That. Mm-hmm.
But before we do that, I want to thank our Patreon supporters for this episode, because without you guys, we wouldn't be doing and looking at all the fun things that we've been looking at in the past week to 10 days or so. More on that in a few days once things start rolling on that. But this week in particular, I'd like to thank Amos Reed, Andrew C., Arvids L., Big Huge Rat, Bryflex, Christian S., Chunk the Monk, Cook Me Plox, Diana, Duramax, L.O. Matey, Flaws Man, Free Milk, Jacob R., Jade Gizmo, Jason S., Jeebus, Jesse W., Ling01, Mohan V., Nate the Great, Nick G., OTR Gamer, Patty the Architect, Parnassius, Renhawk, Ricky A., Samuel FL, Skiotan, Scott DS, Seth W., Stub Eve, Tabby, Taylor B., The Naked Captain, Tom V., and Zat. Thank you, everybody, for making this episode and RSBANDB update possible. If you want to get your name read out, or if you want to contribute to the podcast, all you need to do is head on over to patreon.com/RSBANDB. There, starting for as little as $1 a month, you get access to, first of all, our entire back catalog of monthly bits, our bonus shows. We got one that we're recording next week on Legacy Combat that you guys voted for heavily. David and I have started production on that, so that's going to be a very, very interesting one to look at. But if you want to go one step further, for $3 a month, you'll get a special blue VIP rank on the RSBANDB Discord server, including, this was newly added for the start of the upcoming month, chat channel access, and a mention on the podcast at the start of the month, plus high-quality stereo versions of the show. Now, of course, we also do have the insider tier for $5 a month, where you'll get a shout out on the podcast each and every week, and you'll also gain access to the outtakes that we use to make the clip show at the end of the year, in addition to everything else. And of course, as we mentioned, where we're going to land with this, anybody who has submitted their Patreon info already will be getting a special mail out reward in May from us. It's quite the thing. I'm not going to say anything else, because if I do, I'll wind up spoiling it. But we want it to be a nice surprise for everybody, and this is our big thank you for everybody who has got us to this point so far. And I guess at this point, all that's left is the Hot Ones challenge. If and ever we reach 500, and last week when Earth was on the show, he volunteered to be the moderator of that and ask the hot questions.
Oh, that would be spicy.
It would, and I think he did that to get out of having to have any of the spice stuff.
Smart man.
So, if you want to check us out, patreon.com/RSBANDB. Thanks so much, everyone.
Yeah.
All right, Mod Keeper, the new executive producer.
Yeah.
Tanis, early thoughts? Because we got a whole Q&A to go through. We're going to go through some of the questions, but early read.
My early thoughts was, I'm glad we got to see the face behind the curtain. I think that if we were in a place where we needed someone to maintain the ship, then he's a keeper. But I don't look for big things.
Big substantial changes. He's not a mod warden in that we're going to be modernizing everything in terms of just making the game grow up, right?
No, he seems to be acutely aware that when it comes to the RuneScape community, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Yeah.
And this is why we can't have nice things. So thanks, everybody. I hope you like what we have, because we're going to have it for a while.
And the path
no
we're
one
going
can make
on.
any bold moves because they can't.
Yeah. Thaxi, early read?
I got a fairly similar read. I mean, he definitely, like, when he made comments, it was definitely, everything was vague. And it was definitely kind of like, there were changes that it sounded like he wanted to be made on the engine side of things to kind of modernize and streamline the process. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's also, just he very much had, his responses to me very much set the stage of like trying to keep his head down and just support the staff and support the game and just kind of let the dev cycle just keep running, and kind of just give them the tools they need to succeed. Yeah. And he didn't seem to have, there wasn't anything that he struck me as having, or any statements on a strong vision or a strong goal or a strong.
There was no
grand
vision.
Mm-hmm. There was no real big platform. It was just I'm here to support the team, and we're just going to keep making your game.
Steady as she goes.
Yeah, and sometimes, sometimes you're going to need
Sometimes
that.
you need that. So, sometimes you need that. We're going to dive into the Q&A with this here, and then we'll talk about what was revealed.
Hold on, Shane.
What?
I said, hold on, Shane.
Okay.
We need you in this moment. Only Shane can do this. Uh-oh. We need a Star Trek captain analogy.
Oh. That's a hard one.
I know. I'm the kind of stumped too. That's why I had to see if you knew it.
See, Warden was easy. He was Captain Pike.
Yeah, 100%. How about Cyru, maybe?
Yes.
Cyru?
Yes. In the terms of just, being that kind of person who's going to let the crew just keep doing what they're doing and handling any kind of unforeseen circumstances that come up if the world throws them or the time throws them at something different. When in reality, in the past, you might have had a different role. That's actually a pretty good one, Tanis, now that I think about it.
Right on. It felt like it was needed. We haven't had enough Star Trek references lately.
I'm just glad you didn't say Cisco, because if you would have said Cisco, then that would have been an entirely different leadership that we would have been in for then.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's a complicated guy.
He is. In any case, diving into the live stream, they did confirm with this week that Mod Jack is now lead designer for RuneScape, taking over the position that Mod Osborne held.
That's cool.
This gives me a boatload of confidence, given what we know about Mod Jack and how he will tell us what we don't want to hear, but do what needs to be done.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's wonderful. I liked hearing that. But a bit about ModKeeper's history. He's been at Jagex for about 2.5 years. Started off as an executive producer, leading some technical outsourcing projects. Was with the old school team as a lead producer, which he called an internship, and has been on RS3 for 6 months. Before this, he's got 30-plus years in the games industry. Started playing games on a Commodore 64. He's Dutch, and he's from the Netherlands. He also said that the one thing he likes about RS is its uniqueness, that as a 20-year-old game, it's not like anything else out there, and it makes it very special. And the thing that he dislikes most about RuneScape is some of the confusing bits, and he specifically highlighted the combat system.
He did. And I messaged you as he said that we need to send him a pack of micro lessons.
We should. That's actually
fairly tongue-in-cheek. I don't know that we should actually do this.
No, but I mean, generally, right? But I found that interesting because it makes me wonder how many other new players to the game are in that same boat.
Well, and I will say, too, and we don't talk about this very often, but the combat system is not welcoming to new players because you do not have abilities unlocked. So you can't actually build a high-level rotation before you get to relatively end-game content. You just don't have enough abilities to run a full-time rotation. So especially if he has been, busy doing executive producer things, and I believe he's been playing the game. He said he has, and those kind of things. But I would be unsurprised if he was still what we would consider a relatively new account.
Yeah, and that's fine. And executives don't need to, have that.
No, I
that
fully
huge
agree.
presence
I would
in
rather
game like some of our JMods do, right?
He's not involved in the design stuff. He's just he's involved in leading the team and the ship, right? He's the producer. He is the one that kind of coordinates things, and then the team actually makes the decision and makes it happen. Yeah. So I'm totally fine with that.
And that's what he said. His main goal is to ensure the team can do their best work. And this is where my ears started to perk up, and I want to get your thoughts on this quote, Tanis. He said, "There are some times where there are decision-making moments, but I would love to leave that most to the team as possible because the team is more, in essence, they have the experience, they have the knowledge on specific craft areas, so they should make the decisions." That caught my ear because that's interesting.
That was reminiscent of what even what Mod Warden kind of said about having all these captains, right? And you trust your captains, and you're kind of the admiral. That was good. And well, I'm sure this is coming up. I don't want to step on it.
No, go for it.
Well, I was just going to say that the one thing that gave me confidence was the way that he seemed to understand how to take in player feedback, but not with mob rule.
Right.
Seemed to have a good balance with that, and I was like, thank goodness. Because it was I wasn't sure which way that was going to go.
And every question about something player facing that came up was effectively, let's defer to the community and see which way it needs to go. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Well, but he was very specific to say, we don't need to do polls all the time. Yeah. We shouldn't be like OS. Mm-hmm. It was enough to me to be like, okay, so he knows that there are all kinds of lightning rod issues. Mm-hmm. But as much as he can find a singular opinion that everyone has, then he would let that be influencing on the development.
Yes.
He's doing the good parent thing, right? I mean, it's the best way to take care of your young child. I'm sure you're familiar with this one, Dennis. It's just like, okay, we don't tell them, do you want to do this or not? It's tell them, do you want to do it this way or do you want to do it that way? You give them fake choices. I sincerely hope that he gives, he'll give us options about how things, but like we're going to talk about the roadmap. I think some of those roadmap issues are going to be contentious. And the fact that they're happening, they're going to give some control back to us by saying, how do you want this to be done? It's happening. How do you want it to be done? And I do like that a lot. That's the impression that I got.
Okay, that's good. He also said that his goal is to bring RuneScape into the next 20 years. What does the next 20 years of RS look like? Which, to me, is very much a continuation of where we were at when Mod Warden was finishing up. So, there's that. He also touched on his strategic pillars, specifically the first one being content cadence and how content is built and designed and what type of content is being released. Like, is there enough quests? Is there enough skilling updates? Is there enough PVM? Which I think over the last 12 months, we know there's been more than enough PVM.
True.
The question that brought this drove me crazy.
I know.
I almost texted you when I heard it. I was like,
and there's a reason I paraphrase the questions or just leave them out and summarize the point that was made.
Sorry for bringing it up, but it drove me.
I know.
Nutty.
I know. But with that, other pillars include the advent of sustainable live ops. Making it sustainable means how many events per year, how many promotions, what could get sold. And that's, once again, addressing those kind of issues head on, which I think people are going to want to have a discussion about, given, the fox ears that we just had at Easter, the green Santa hat that we had at Christmas and whatnot. Because it seems if this trend were to continue, we'd be having quarterly rares, right? So the thing is, do you want that to continue? And how much stuff on the treasure hunter side is going to get sold in terms of lamps? Because we have a topic on that after with treasure hunter and oddments. So,
well, now that they can make transmogs move, that's a gold mine.
Oh boy, would it be? Would it be?
Well, if they've already got a pre-boned model for them.
True.
Looking Chukobies and Salamanders,
Oh.
But, right.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I mean, yeah.
The issue he said that was dearest to his heart, smart working in terms of specifically how do you help the team get better at what they do? And the way this was highlighted as one of his core issues, in that this is a very abstract concept for people who aren't aware of how the industry works, right? And I think the best way to get around this, and in particular how to show this kind of thing off, is to just have, in effect, what could amount to, a 2-minute quick video out of a JMod's day. Hey, here, we're doing a spot check with Mod Breezy. What are you currently working on? And why is this different than last year? What's changed? That kind of thing. Helping the team get better at those sorts of things, so to speak. From the, I guess, marketing and community side, that would be.
Yeah. It's hard because, they don't want to spoil the content they're working
you can't
on.
spoil content, but, as you get closer to something, you can kind of, push it into
hype
the
up.
future.
Especially since we're getting roadmaps again. We know what updates are coming. They can talk in very general terms about what they're working on without giving us. It's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
And with that, connect more with the community. Talk more to the players. Hear what the hot topics are, what's not working, and what the community would love to see.
See, that's what I'm talking about. If the community overwhelmingly wants to see a particular thing, maybe it makes it up to the top of the list. But
is there anybody in the community who can articulate that besides us?
There are several people that are working on it, community-wise.
Okay. And the reason I say that is because typically what this has involved was in the worst case, riots on World 66, and in the common day-to-day, inflammatory Reddit posts.
Mm-hmm.
So, and, we need to be 100% honest, is that you can ask anybody from a whole wide range of spectrums, how is the community management side of the game working? And you'll get a myriad of answers from, I'm relatively happy to know the community management team is doing absolutely nothing on the absolute far end of it. And because of that, it's how do you get this out forward? And in many ways, this is more of a CM question than an EP question, believe it or not. So I think Mod Hooli and team is going to have their work cut out for them on this. So, that's a huge asterisk with that.
And I think that it sounds like there's some solutions being put in place where there are like major faces of the community who are being asked to help garner some of that feedback, in addition to people who play the game all the time.
Oh, like the PAGs?
To have a finger on the pulse.
Oh, like the PAGs?
Kind of. And I believe the RS guy is one of the people that they're working with to do this.
I thought his was just an interview show more than interacting with the community kind of thing. But we'll have to wait and see how that
they've got some other
out.
they've got some other stuff in the wings.
Okay.
If I remember correctly. I could be wrong.
I mean, I hate to say it, but I think Hooli needs a Shawnee.
Like a community champion, someone that the community loves.
Someone that the community connects with.
Okay.
Most importantly, just that connection. And I'm not saying that it's from like a lack of trying or this or that. There's just something special about him.
Yeah.
And there's been certain JMods like that.
You remember how long it took Mod Porky to fill that role?
Yeah, and even before before Shawnee, I think, people felt kind of a connection to Mod Lee.
Yeah.
So he needs one of those that that can help him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think I think they do want to go that way. It's just a question of how they get there at the end, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if that results in more community connection, then that's ultimately a good thing, because, like I said, you're going to get a full spectrum of answers from absolute horrible to, hey, we're doing just fine. So, there's a bit of a departure in questions from the EP now towards a question about clans and the clan system going forward. Modkeeper said that with this, he's actually a fairly avid World of Warcraft player, and he's in one of the top guilds there, so he totally understands the importance that clans have. The question was then sent over to Mod Jack, who says that the clan updates have focused so far on bonuses for being in a clan, but he'd like to see future clan updates be focused on the social tools, giving clan leaders the tools and access that they need to manage the clan better. Which
makes so much sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, we don't need any more incentives. Like, clans have consolidated enough. Giving the tool, like, social tools and stuff, that would be, a lot of, think about it, Shane. How much stuff does Clan Quest kind of do on the side, because it's just not, you don't have the infrastructure to be able to do it in game.
Yeah, exactly. And, permission management being more granular, that's something we could all jump up and down about.
So many
portal.
So many permissions, though.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And, just the way they tie into engine and whatnot. And in fact, these updates are for such a small amount of people. That's where you get to the business idea of why it's been so long since we've had a wholesome clan update. So,
which is weird, because I don't think, how many 500-person clans? There's a lot.
I don't know.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
The thing is, too, that, like, how many people, tie a lot of their enjoyment of the game to their clan and their clan events, right? And, there's plenty of people that play the game for the game's sake, or to be very idle, and, different players, different styles. But I think there are a lot of people that, especially clan leaders are among them, but even clan members, in terms of they enjoy the people they play the game with, and that's what keeps them coming back, is that they've got events coming up, and they've got things on their schedule. And so, I love the clan notice board, but it's janky as all get out. And, that's one of those things that could use some lick of paint.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. Absolutely. By the way, that event you found scheduled for 2025 is still there.
That wasn't me. I think that was actually Reed.
Oh, okay. All right.
I believe Reed scheduled that in 2019 when the notice board first came out. It was him, I think it was him that
someone crazy.
Yeah, it's visible for people that don't know what we're talking about. There on the Clan Quest clan notice board, there has been for many years now an event coming up in 2025. It was at the time the latest date you could schedule an event for, where it was the event was specifically it's visible to everybody, but it's designed for anybody who is clan. It was admins, all of the clan leadership was going to meet in the fight pit. We were going to, have a post-apocalyptic end of days, good old battle to the death. I believe was the plan. It gives me a good chuckle every time I see it.
It does.
Shout out to the clan notice board for that one.
Maybe we just need more mini games that are active in a system to jump into mini games easier. A queue system.
Honestly, I would love it if honestly most mini games probably just should be put on a shard world at this point.
Yeah. Because that's the easiest thing about Star Trek Online. You press a button and you're into any queue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, traveling to the Void Knight Island should take you to an instance the same way that traveling to, Heist or not Heist. Oh, actually, maybe Heist, but Flash Powder Factory, or there's a handful of them, right? They all take you off to an instance world. I think the Games Room has an instance world option too. A bunch of those. So I think if they did that with the rest of them, and just made an FTP instance and a P2P instance, that would be. Maybe they'd come back. I'm not overly hopeful, but it would be nice.
Yeah. Next question was, is there any chance that prices of certain items could be updated on the GE to the real prices? It had to be done manually, and Timbo was working that on the exact same day that this live stream happened, and this is why in Timbo we trust.
I love that conversation. If you didn't hear this in the live stream, it's worth going back and listening to, because it sounded like they had this everybody looked at the office and then did the Spider-Man meme where they all pointed to each other, and they're like, who? So I think they said that Timbo had asked the question literally that morning or somebody had asked who has the power to update the GE prices, and they all Jack looked at Timbo and said, "You do." And Timbo said, "Oh, I have some work to do." And went off and took the morning to comb through the numbers and fix. And he posted during the live stream. If you go to his Twitter, you'll find it near the top. A very long list of items that he updated the price for. He said everything that the average trade value over the last whatever X number of days was more than 10 million coins off of what the actual GE price was. He updated the price for. And some of them still seem a little bit off to me, but they're definitely better. So.
Yeah. So we got things like Crypt Bloom, the Cloak of Seasons, Diamond Cane, Elite Serenic pieces, Grasping Rune pouches, Trim Masterwork
more regular updates on those, which good.
Important.
Regulation. Woo!
Yeah. Well, everything below max cash is still fine. You guys had that discussion last week.
Yeah, we did.
So,
That's a bigger problem. That was actually addressed in the Q&A in a bit. And,
I love it, too. Look, Mudjack's like, we got solutions.
They said
you
exactly what we said.
We got them. we got to fix this tomorrow.
We went on that. So. Okay, we'll get to that. That was hilarious. But what's your stance on announcing upcoming content? They asked Modkeeper, and he said it's important to connect with the players. And there's that term again, connect with the players. To not just do Q&As, but maybe do a bit more behind the scenes on what's being worked on and where the game is going.
I mean, we've been saying it. Give us something to be excited about. You don't need to give us a ton of details. You just tell us, this thing is coming, and you should want it. And, good job.
Yeah, throw a little bit of red meat to the base.
Yeah.
So that then spiraled into a question: can you bring back the taps sessions, Thursday afternoon personal projects? He said this is a powerful mechanic for the players and for the dev team because they can work on something that they obviously like. And a few weeks ago, they actually had their own game jam internally that wasn't publicized, that revolved around designing content to bring back lapsed players.
Nice.
Which is interesting that they would target that crowd.
I wonder if that's where the retro cosmetic poll came from.
Maybe it did.
I wonder if that spawned that.
Maybe it did.
Speaking of which, there's a poll in game, folks. Go vote. It's in your community tab. Go do it. It's live now.
It'll be done by the time they're hearing this.
Just kidding. It's been live. I hope you voted.
And you were talking about this last night, actually.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of maybe using some of the older cosmetics like the whip and the scimitar and the golden armor to bring back people who might have been more comfortable with old school.
Well, I think that's one of those that even if people have only played old school, if they've not tried RuneScape 3 because the combat system is intimidating and the game is distinctly, relatively different despite the story being somewhat similar. I think, like some of the items they're bringing back are very much, the scimitars, like people use that as their mouse on old school sometimes, like these are relatively iconic items that carry some value and are like, that's endgame. That's what you want to look like. That's the height of cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And so having those available for RS3, I think is a good thing. And I do like that they're bringing a handful of those back. So
yeah.
Yeah, so like with that in mind, I did vote for the 2005 versions of all of those because those feel like the most classic versions of them to me. If I was going to buy them, that's the one I would want, and also again because it's those old school players.
Yeah. Also, he was asked about his stance on investing in quests or reprioritizing quest content, which I got to talk about that being part of Clan Quest, and he said he wants to look at the data and determine if quests are too long or too short. But they definitely won't be going to, vanilla fetch quests like other MMOs have.
Right. He's a WoW player.
Which makes sense. Mm-hmm. And he understands that RS quests need to be different.
Yep. Yeah. We'll see what comes out of that. I'll trust them to make the right decisions.
See, we feel this way from the Clan Quest side, that the quests in particular that we've had in the last year or so were the right length. I personally felt the only quest I felt was too long was Endgame. But I want to bring you in on this, Tanis, quest length.
Yeah, they were all too long. All the ones I've done lately.
I'm actually with Tanis on this one.
Okay.
I'm with Tanis on this one. I think many of those quests could actually be very straight up split in half. And keep this. I mean, you could keep the same volume of quests. I like the content, but if you're not a person that plays, a lot of them have been very long. If you're a person that doesn't play the game for very many hours a week, that's a big.
That's true.
Big time
actually,
or if you have any challenge whatsoever, it takes a very long time. You have to really want it, and then a lot of times you get to the end and it's wah, wah.
Well, I think they've done an excellent job with content recently where they've mixed the combat and the puzzles, and like they've done a good mix of content each quest. And I appreciate that because quests are so few and far between, it seems. But quests in the past were like, you had quests that were very straight puzzle quests. You had quests that were very much, there's some story here, but this is a combat focused quest. And these are very much more kind of, we're telling a grander story and we're generalizing and we're putting all the pieces together, right? There were some puzzles, there were some easier puzzles in the Elder God Wars areas. There were some harder puzzles in other areas without spoiling anything. There was some easier combat and some harder combat. Like they had a great mix in Extinction of all these things, but I wouldn't be opposed to them not having, a boss as such at the end of every quest and not having, having truly shorter and more frequent quests,
Yeah.
I think that's something that is doable and would make it maybe more palatable because there are a lot of the community, like
and that kind of leans back on that old school quest idea. of how quests were
Yeah.
back in the day.
Well, even old school kind of has a similar thing where quests take so long to complete that if there's not a real highlight, if you can't kind of just snap one out every once in a while, that like people aren't going to be big fans all
Very
the time,
true.
right?
Very true.
So I don't know.
And he said they're going to do this based on the data.
Right.
So the amount of people who start a quest and don't complete it will factor all that in. So,
Or that completed in multiple sessions over
There you
how
go.
long a period
There
of
you
time,
go.
and I'm sure they have all that.
Yeah.
So.
absolutely. Current allocation of resources related to the presentation of the game, and this was a way of asking about the player reward, graphical updates, cutscenes versus pre-rendered videos like the graphic cutscenes we have.
Yeah.
He said it'll be a balance between new and old. Over time, there'll be things that should be updated, and it's going to be finding the right balance of updating things, whether or not the update needs it, and whether or not the updates would upset portions of the player base.
That told me everything I needed to know right there. When he said that, I'm like, well, you might be in on RuneScape for 6 months, but you know us. You know us.
And the player avatar rework hasn't been shelved. It's very much still in the works.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of steps to take before we're ready to implement it. Great way to put the fact that it's shelved. It's not currently something we're working on, but it's something we want to do. Great, cool.
But we need
awesome,
all
fun.
kinds of tech updates to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like that is one of the things that he did relatively consistently say, and maybe that's because he's been working in that part for at least old school, is that, he's aware of the tech updates that need to happen, and they are putting some amount of resources into those, which, cool. We'll see what that looks like.
And there's a question on this, not next, but the one immediately after this. Will there be any emphasis on something like RuneScape 4 or moving to a more current game engine? And seeing what's happening with behind the scenes, he said, and what's being worked on, it looks as though things are being transitioned to RuneScape 4 from a technical perspective. But if that ever leads to a RuneScape 4 that is actually RuneScape 4, everybody will just have to wait and see on that. So what that means when you peel back the layers of it is that, let's just say the top presentation of the content in game, how it looks is all going to stay the same, but everything that runs underneath is going to be receiving a massive facelift.
Yeah, I'm not sure what colored pill it was that we took, but we've been in RuneScape 4 apparently. Like, this is RuneScape 4. We just didn't know it.
Yeah.
Blue pill?
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
And then obviously the next question came from the spring fair that we recently had. Does the executive producer feel that holiday events are in a place where they should be today? And this was once again the question where you defer to the players. Some people love holiday events and some people skip them. I want to talk more to the players.
If you guys can make up your mind,
to
we could do
understand
something
what the
for
need
you.
is behind them. Maybe we need more, maybe we need less.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you're all schizophrenic and we don't know what the hell to do.
Well, the question specifically, when it was asked, specifically mentioned like old school, right? Do we want to have things like old school? And he very much said, well, some people don't interface with them, and that's can be a hefty amount of dev time. So, people say they want them, but if we don't have heavy community interaction, they just won't get made. It's kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Which, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I miss them.
Yeah, me too. Then comes the question of polls or power to the players. He said, being more open to the community is the first step, and receiving feedback is also the first step. Polling can be a tool to use, but they probably don't want to go towards an old school method of polling. They might be using it here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Woo!
Basically,
did you feel the same way, Tanis?
Yeah, I was glad about that because they specifically mentioned power to the players, and I'm like, not do that again.
How familiar are you guys with the old school polling kind of results and I mean, not just the system, but how they usually go?
I mean, vaguely, I've heard that everything is polled, and I've heard that
everything.
The old school people love it.
I know they got Song of
don't
the
think
Elves,
it would work well
but Warding
for
got
us.
torpedoed.
So there's a few things that are issues with that system. I mean, the obvious thing is like sometimes they do just do updates, right? There's like if there's a quality of life update that must happen, they'll just do it without polling it. But they poll pretty much all of the content that goes into the game, including like the balancing on it and everything. And there's some stuff that just will pass because it's cool, it's whatever. But like the community there also, like, it's very much asking for permission. And I don't want the RuneScape 3 team to start asking us for permission to do things and then requiring 3/4 of us to say, yes, we want it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, again, I'm still salty, frankly, about bring back the wilderness vote. The referendum, the whatever the heck the thing was that they did, because there wasn't an opt-out button. You couldn't see what was like the other side of the web page without clicking the button that says, yeah, I think we should do it. And there was like, they let it run for an incredibly long period of time. There was no, I don't want this. It was only a yes or don't say anything.
Yeah, and I think that one was decided that it was going to come back regardless.
That was the thing. Like that wasn't a real choice.
No.
And so I mean, maybe that's a bad example, but like here we are again, and it we'll talk about the roadmap, wilderness changes,
Yeah.
but I mean, the issue with the old school changes, almost every change they pull to do with their wilderness gets denied. Because there are enough people that don't want to deal with the wilderness because they find the wilderness annoying, because they find the PKers and the getting ganked like that just unfun. And so enough people say that they wouldn't play content that no recent changes at all have passed their update for their wilderness with their PvP side.
Yeah, don't they have one going on with that right now that was controversial, I think?
Probably. I mean,
there's
that
always something. They added loot keys recently. Which, like, so you don't have to loot because people were being attacked while they were looting after fights. Like, they added a PJ timer recently where you can't be attacked by another player while you've recently been in combat, and mobs can't.
I haven't heard
bring
that
you
term
out of
for
PvP.
years.
Player jacking, yeah.
Yeah.
But like, PvP quality of life stuff kind of sometimes goes through like that, but the majority of like, do you want content in PvP areas? People just hard veto because they require a set number of people to want something to pass it.
And
I feel that way too, though, on our side.
True.
Because it's a waste of resources for what, 2 people?
And I want to say
we don't have as much of a PvP scene as they do too, to be fair.
And I want to say there's part of me that would like to say, let's try this for 6 months. Let's try this for 6 headlines and see how it goes.
Well, and maybe that's what will happen. I mean, they've given us 6 months worth of headlines, right?
Yeah, I'd just like to see what would happen. Like, I don't think they should do it for story stuff, but other stuff, why not? Let's try it for a couple months.
They did, right? We've got relics of that system all over the game. There are pull boxes literally sitting outside of all the free-to-play banks still, and other places. And the polling system still exists in game, even though, like, there's 2 polls in here. Choosing your retro skins 1 and 2 is up. Okay. For the longest time, there were like months old polls in here, right? Just
they were
everything was closed.
But you never get notified either.
No, you used to get a notification in your chat box when you logged in. I don't know if they did that for these.
Oh. Well, you used to get like a big pop-up that said, hey, there's a poll going on.
That's true. And it's like they did away with those pop-ups, and they did away with a lot of the polling system because when it came down to it, they made the choices they felt were going to be good for the game, and didn't always listen to us, which was, again, the correct decision, I think. But there's a time and place for it. I'm interested to see how they go about gathering the feedback that they say they want. That's kind of where we're at, I guess.
Next up, they asked him about his favorite game of all time. It was Bubble Bobble. It was the first game he started playing. He would play it through the night, and looked out the window, it was light out. But before that, reading books and experiencing stories. And World of Warcraft is in his top 5 games.
Oh, of course.
Then Mod Hooley had to ask Mod Jack's favorite game, and Mod Jack's favorite game is Sid Meier's Colonization.
Sure.
So there's that.
Civilization.
Yeah.
Not colonization.
Oh, whoops.
That's a different game.
Whoops. I guess
The queen would like her subjects back, please. Thank you.
Yeah, that's Shane's favorite game.
Oh, I don't know about that. That's a whole other can of worms. But anyways, the yeah. Anyways,
I once had a colony
Cool.
nation in Europa Universalis 4 that was quite nice. Anyways, it was basically Sweden colonized modern-day Georgia and Florida and South Carolina of the U.S.
Could they colonize us now? Because we could use some of their healthcare and
Education.
stuff like that. Yeah, that'd be cool.
What?
Come invade us, Sweden.
The next one is that the question was asked, there's a prevailing notion that RuneScape should have weekly or almost weekly content updates to like how it was in the past. Or
I wanted to paintbrush somebody.
or
Anyone else?
Or
right across the mouth.
Or are key monthly updates and Ninja Strikes likely going to be the model into the future? His answer was once again, I'd love to do daily content updates, but there's a lot of work going into the updates.
Mm-hmm.
We want to get into a good spot where players can expect what's to come with maybe even bigger, quote, movie release styles of updates and trying to get to that cadence and finding one that makes sense, and they'll be figuring this out in the next few months. And what was interesting, and I don't know if you read into this as well, Tanis, is that he would not be opposed to having a larger quarterly style update similar to how WoW might have it, because he said movie release updates every few months, but key updates every month. I don't know if you picked up on that.
No, I did, and it made perfect sense to me. But he might as well said, "Yeah,
we're going to try expansions
I wish
again.
unicorns could run on rainbows.
Yeah.
I wish I could fix world hunger. I wish I could bring world peace." But it's
player base
happening.
They would, yeah. We would lose people between those 3 months. Between when content dropped. I mean, that's kind of
like let's be honest. Let's just look at everything that happened between Hetz Oasis and Extinction. We got the Abyssal Slayer creatures, but everybody was feeling the stretch with that.
Mm-hmm.
But that was a stretch. The way that I felt, what it sounded like to me was like Abyssal Slayer creatures, okay, Hetz Oasis, those would have been what he was talking about with the TV shows, right? The monthly headliners.
Yeah.
Whereas the quarterly stuff would have been bigger. To me, that's more of a well, it's not quite as big as a Menophos, but bigger than just Extinction. Like if Extinction and Iowa was wherever the reward place. If it was a legit like skilling area, like that, then something like that size. And I don't think that's too bad. That's kind of what we get anyway.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, yeah.
But once again, keep the things as they are, mod keeper. That seems to be the sense in the way we're going here, is that right now, don't expect huge seismic changes.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what I read into all this. I don't know if you guys felt differently.
Oh, no, absolutely. Sure did.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Where does ModKeeper see the most opportunity for growth within the team? He says RuneScape's obviously very successful since it's 20 years old, but that might also mean that there's not a lot that he necessarily needs to change. He says he brings a lot from outside. He could perhaps optimize things using outside experience and knowledge. And this is, once again, keeping things as they are, not seismic changes. He says won't be changing a lot, perhaps be a little bit smarter and maybe think a little bit differently and maybe be a little bit bolder.
Did you think that was a weird question? I thought it was a really weird question.
Yeah.
I've never heard something asked in that way. I'm like,
you're not going to throw the team under the bus. You're never going to do that. So I don't know what the heck the point of that question was, but I think the answer spoke to what needed to be said, and we got something important out of it in that he said there's not a lot that I need to change. So that's, once again, keeping the path.
Yeah.
A bit smarter, maybe a bit bolder. So,
I mean, from my perspective, we had some incredibly long and very inconsistent content droughts. And I think that really was challenging for the game's player base.
Yep.
That, I think the first half of last year, with love to the anniversary celebrations, was not anything incredibly special. I think the same thing could be said for kind of like Raksha was released, but around, we kind of got our 120s for things, and then we got archaeology, and then there was a fairly long downtime where there wasn't a terribly large amount of new content to the game. And, between the quests and the Elder God Wars kind of whole area, we've gotten quite a lot of new content this year. Even and we know they're not huge, but they've made completely new environments and methods and things for 3 updates already this year. And it is the end of April, so it's been 4 months, but they've added in, new environments. They've made, I'm not going to say, wildly huge significant updates, but they've large content pieces for sure.
And that's the thing that people don't get, is that these aren't your updates from 2005 or 2006. These are updates that have a full team behind them: environment, audio, localization, QA, and the devs. Whereas before, you didn't necessarily need new environments for all these updates. But what you just highlighted out is that point where at this point you just have to iterate a bit to maybe not necessarily change that much, but maybe, like you said, just be a little bit smarter and be a little bit bolder. So
they're, generally speaking, giving people a reason to be subscribed every month. They're every month to month and a half, at least so far at the start of this year, they've given us some piece of content that says, hey, here's your subscription money, here's what you're getting, in addition to all of the other things that are already in the game.
Yeah.
And I think if they can keep up that cadence where they don't have multi-month droughts where they've got some patch notes, they've got some smaller updates, but where they're getting a content release out once every month or two, I'm happy with the game in that state.
Yeah, because we were spoiled by the 4 fronts back to back last year.
Yeah, I mean,
and that was perhaps a bit
put
much.
time into it. Well, they had some making up to do. That's what I felt for that.
Yeah.
Is that okay, we got a full year worth of content in 4 months, and I'm okay with it. But yeah, at the start of last year, I was very much feeling very burnt out with the game. So
yeah. Tavis, any final thoughts on this one?
Well, I just want to say that's an important thing that Daxi brought up, and when I'm saying that, I like the schedule, and this is what we're getting anyway. No, that doesn't take into account delays and content droughts and all. I'm saying if all things were to remain as they are and as they are supposed to be, not having that happen, then that's perfectly fine. And the other thing, I hate to bring this up, but right now it's the right balance for the price. I think if you want more, it would be more expensive, and we just found out that the price is going to already go up. Right. So I think, I feel like it is a good balance. Less would be not probably enough for me, but more, I wouldn't want to pay for.
Right.
Okay, that's actually a really interesting way of looking at it. I appreciate that. Once again, there's more questions about community and such, in particular about how can you do more outside Q&As. He's called this a long journey that we will be going on. Those were his exact words. Might be blog posts, Discord Q&As, open and closed betas. Polling could also be a part of it, and if the world changes enough back to how it was, RuneFest.
Yeah.
There's still a chance someday.
Yeah.
Someday.
And from what I understand of it, it's a liability issue to the point where, if somebody gets COVID at RuneFest and the worst happens, they don't necessarily have a way of dealing with that from a legal angle, as bad as that sounds.
RuneFest, USA, baby. We'll do it in Florida. They have no rules there. They don't give a shit. RuneFest, Florida. Let's go.
I always thought Vegas would be a better one in the U.S.
It would, but
Maybe.
they even have a small, like, well, actually, no, everywhere. We're wide open. We are wide open. So I'd be down with Vegas. I don't know if my wife would allow me to go to Vegas. I could probably get away with, like, St. Pete or Tampa.
I have not been to RuneFest and want to go at one point, but we'll see. We'll see what the world ends up doing. Yeah, I don't.
It's a long trip to London for us in the Northern Hemisphere to make for RuneFest. Let me just say that.
Well, yeah, sure.
Yeah. 8+ hours, 6'2" in an economy seat is not fun. All right. Avatar refresh. We did that. Yes. Here's a good one. Will RuneScape 3 ever be more transparent with things like the economy and death costs? And the player avatar refresh. He said the short answer is yes, winking towards the upcoming roadmap. And Mod Jack said that death costs are the highest priority right now for him, second to getting more content into the game. And with this, inflation is the most significant question for the RS economy as a whole, which also attaches onto the rares and then the grand exchange.
Mm-hmm.
We were there last week. Listen to our nibble on that.
Yeah. Well, I thought this was very telling, and you know what I heard? You know what I heard when he was saying this? If they can tackle the death cost, then he can decouple some of the solutions he has for the inflation that everybody would piss and moan about. I feel like if you could decouple that, then maybe I don't know. I felt like he had a plan. He had ideas.
If dying cost less, getting less alchables and less gold drops from bosses would feel better. I mean, that's true.
Yeah. And he basically said what we said last week is that you do PVM that adds gold to the game, that filters and in some cases people who are farming high level PVM pushes them into the rares market, which in turn manipulates the rares market, which feeds back on the rest of the economy. So it's that whole encompassed loop with that. And he said they did experiment with removing GP drops from combat, and one of these was stone spirits, and it was skilling drops being removed from bosses, and that was stone spirits. So he said that it didn't work out particularly well, but if it had have worked, they could have rolled that out and removed inflation that way.
Yeah, well, they could have removed them, right? Like, that wasn't something we needed. And that is why I feel like if he can fix them...
They had to give us something.
But
you don't want to
did they?
And then get nothing. I mean, in effect, no, because stone spirits are not worth very much. But they can't just leave empty spots on a boss drop table. So, you could have just said it so that the boss gives you like 2k or whatever, and it would have been equivalent. But at least they gave these things a use.
Right, but you could if it wasn't costing you money. Right? I mean, if there wasn't as much risk, then it would be like, well, then you're on the skiller level now, bud. Have fun. And skilling supplies would go up. It would make that viable. You wouldn't be paying every time you died. Like, it feels like there's a solution here, but we're all going to have a little bit of pain.
Yeah, and he said the reason inflation hasn't been fixed is that gold drops would need to be removed from bosses, and the trick is finding a way to make PVM rewarding, since there's the idea now that every kill should be money positive, and that leads to inflation.
Well, again, it comes down to, I think the game should reward you for the like attention you put into it. To like, like Croesus is an excellent example of like a skilling, right? It's not PVM necessarily, or Big Game Hunter that's like relatively high value skilling methods, but they take a lot of attention to do, right? A lot of the skilling methods that, like rune crafting is another good example where like you have to put in very high effort, but you get fairly good profit out of it if you're doing it as a money making method. They, you know, I don't want PVMing and killing a lot of them. I mean, some bosses you might be able to get away with it, they're fairly okay, but I want them to be on the same level as some of the gathering skills, frankly, because I would feel bad about if my average drop, including rares, was in a similar vein to like harvesting elder logs at a mid to high tier boss. Like, I would much rather spend my time at doing the elder logs, right? And some people want to pay more attention, some people want to pay less, but that's the idea, is that you pay more attention, you get more reward. And I know that doesn't sit well with everybody, but you know, that's a fairly strongly held opinion on it.
Yeah, and this makes the solution of what they're going to be doing with the Death Cost rework all the more interesting, I think.
We'll see what they do.
Yeah.
Anywho,
anything else on the Q&A from either of you?
No, I think we've
nailed it.
Okay. And I guess it's too early to ask if he's a keeper.
He seems fine.
I mean, yeah.
I think they did a good thing by throwing his face up right next to upcoming content that people might be excited about.
Boom! We got an upcoming roadmap. The roadmap people have been wanting for a long time is here.
Boom! They gave us 3 updates that are quarterly large updates, which I'm sure there'll be other odds and ends, smaller updates coming with things, right? Like we've got these updates, these extra rewards. So it seems like Extinction was kind of the big reward for spring, right?
Yeah.
Or early spring at least. Yeah. And then they're rolling out like, here's some extra updates and rewards and things to go with Extinction. I'm hoping that they'll do similar things with these quarterly updates where they say, you know, like this, the one that's scheduled for summer, our big boy Zami is coming back. And they say they're going to have a quest for that. So like they're putting together a bunch of smaller things to compartmentalize with this big, like, this is our theme, this is our big release for the year. So for the period. And I like that. I actually like that a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So we only got these reward changes though, because kind of missed the mark.
No, true, but like we know that there's other things coming, right? They said the update for next week is going to be follow-on rewards mixing. And this thing that we got this week was truly just a patch. Yeah.
Yeah.
This I wasn't counting this in terms of those content.
So coming soon, new fletching and firemaking training stations involving tier 95 arrows.
Hint, hint. Reward drops from the boss, which they, I guess, also mention.
Yeah. And there's a picture of a Zygamite here.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I wonder how that's going to play into it with that.
My guess is that when you think about areas of the world that have, I'm going to say open space, maybe are a little bit larger than they needed to be, and are not elsewhere in this roadmap, looking at True Wilderness, Anachronia is kind of the place, right? Yeah. So I imagine that's an ancient Zygamite. I imagine this fletching and farmmaking will be Anachronia trees.
Tannis, fletching and firemaking. What does this do for you? If you had your way with this on the skilling side? Because I feel like we've been skilling deficient here at the podcast ever since the Elder God Wars. We've been so focused on combat that we haven't had a chance to dive into, you know, a new training method like safe cracking or the like with this. What would you want from this?
Brief holiday.
Well, I mean, so let me understand this right. We'll be somehow making or getting the materials for the tier 95 arrows. Is that what we're fletching?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's I want just a steady way to be able to get XP per hour.
Training method.
Yeah. Training method is wonderful. Now, for the fletching, I get it. There's going to be a money element involved, right? Because that's going to be a best in slot arrow. Although,
we don't have the bow yet, but that'll be this summer.
We don't know. Yeah, so that one's
be the best arrows here.
Fire making, where we could get the something similar to the rates of the pitch can without having to deal with getting a pitch can would be quite nice. Or just, reimagined altogether.
I'm thinking like whatchamacallit? The like my brain is going to the curly roots in the Jodinko lair. Because it sounds like if they're going to be fletching with this, I'm presuming the same logs, right? I'm assuming we'll be able to gather. There'll be a gathering element to this too from wood cutting. I'm assuming, right?
They could just use elders.
Something. Maybe it'll use elders, but I'm imagining that these are going to be like something that's slow to obtain, and I guess elders fit that bill. That like. Well, but again, fire making with elders is stuff that kind of already exists and is already kind of not a good show. I wonder if there isn't like we're going to be gathering kindling or wood or something from vines. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But my brain is going like curly roots, and curly roots are god tier XP per hour, but you have to spend time gathering them. And I'm wondering if this fire making is going to be in that same vein.
Okay.
Where it's
all right.
Yeah.
Well, Tannis, you just said consistent XP per hour, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a good one. The curly roots definitely had its time. Also with the I forget what it was, but you could chop them and burn them at the same time, and then you were playing
Inferno
gas
ads?
then.
Like the Inferno ads, and there's a relic power.
Mhm.
Always adds.
Yeah.
Or
So
a prayer. I think there's a prayer too, superheat form that also does that.
Interesting. We also got the Journey to Iaia Yak Track.
Cool.
Iron Man Team Dungeoneering. This is in the soon category. Then moving into summer, we got the Zamarak boss quest. The fifth boss, Zamarak, with an elite dungeon and a boss battle at the end of it. So this is in an elite dungeon format. Zerdone's in our lore production chat about everything Elder God Wars called that the final boss would be based off an elite dungeon.
Raid.
Yeah, classic raid, not the Mazcab style.
Fighting Moya and whoever else we find.
Yeah, that could
Generals.
be interesting. Tier 95 rewards. Maybe there'll also be a sofa in there at some point. If Maud Blackwitch gets her way. Also, a new storyline quest in the summer category. They're not, of course, saying what that is. Then we head into autumn with the Wilderness Reborn, a PVM focus and opt-in PvP, alongside the Death Cost rework and a Zamarak-themed Yak Track.
Yeah, I'm excited for new storyline quest. I'm very interested to see where they take that. They said they wanted to go smaller scale with things after Elder God Wars. So I'm hoping, Arbosandra isn't a new storyline, Grumble, but there's options there. So I'm curious to see where they take the new storyline.
Yeah. So here's how
we've
this
got a bunch of Villajanka on Gilmer or something like that.
So here's how this all pans out in my view, in terms of what we're looking at timeline wise for this. The fletching and fire making stuff is obviously going to be in May. The Journey to Iaia Yak Track will come in after the double XP weekend that is undoubtedly going to happen in the last 2 weeks of May, or the double XP week period, or double XP live in the last 2 weeks of May. Iron Man Team Dungeoneering would make sense to come out before the double XP event. So that's what May looks like. Then that means June, Zamarak Boss Quest. July, 5th Boss Zamarak. August, new storyline. September, Wilderness Reborn. October, Death Cost rework tied in with the Death Halloween event. And then the Zamarak Yak Track leading up in September, October, with a break until the Christmas one starts at the end of November. And that's what the rest of the year looks like, I think. If they keep to the schedule.
And that would be awesome. They're giving kind of monthly headers to everything. Big fan.
Yeah. And I think that makes the most sense. And I think just based on how everything is laid out on this graphic, that's probably the way things are going to go, barring any inconsistencies in the timeline. I realize that if you are a fan of any science fiction, it might have just sounded like we were talking about something that was influenced by some foreign temporal operative, right, Tanis? Inconsistencies of the timeline.
So yeah.
I do have two comments to make on this too, and one of them is just for, like, very briefly on the tier 95 arrows. We do have 2 tier 95 arrows that we've covered extensively on this show previously that are very strong, like just very strong as weapons.
But no one uses them.
Well, I'm a little concerned that if we get even stronger arrows and then a tier 95 bow, that I'm concerned about what that's gonna look like.
Yeah,
because the arrows we have are wild.
Also, we're not doing the arrow lesson the arrow micro lesson until these come out.
We're going to talk about ammo, friends. We're going to spend a 5-minute period talking about ammo, but we'll wait until this is out before we do that.
Yeah.
Possibly until we get a bow to go with them. We'll decide on that later. But the other thing I want to mention, and I don't see if you guys have any thoughts on, and I mentioned this to at least you, Shane, I know, but the Wilderness Reborn is the biggest of all of these things, and I know we've got arrows and boss, and the thing that I'm looking forward to is neither of those. But the Wilderness Reborn, I don't like RuneScape PvP. I find being ganked in the wilderness to be wildly obnoxious, and I avoid it like the plague because I can't be bothered. I don't need to go there, and so I don't. I'm very interested to see what they do with this in terms of, they said they want to make it dangerous, and I think I am not the only one to think about like environmental hazards with that in terms of like, can you only spend a certain amount of time there? Is it a time gated thing? Is it a, levels gated thing? Is it like,
and how do you do opt-in PvP?
I have thoughts on that too, but just in terms of making it obnoxious, I'm not risk versus reward. Like I'm interested to see how they do that because I don't want the wilderness to be annoying.
Yeah.
I don't go to the wilderness now because it is annoying to be in the wilderness. Obnoxious even because of the people, not because of the place. And if they want to make the place obnoxious, that's not going to make things better for me.
No,
it's annoying.
Tannis can tell you about his experience with storms.
Yeah. I hate the wilderness. I just...
Yeah. Amen, brother.
I mean, yeah. What does this tell you? We can't make it not annoying because it might annoy somebody. That sucks.
Well, I don't care about it being like it's obnoxious. It's not fun to be there because it is.
It should just be done. It should be done. This thing's been on life support for however many years. It's good space that we could use for good people.
Yeah.
And good skilling.
Judgy Tannis, I'm with you though. So here's my thoughts though. If I had to ask either of you, which of when they did world events, which world event was the best world event?
2.
What was the thing with World Event 2? You could get like triple or quintuple, whatever it was, event progress if you had your PvP on. I want them to make the wilderness like that. And maybe it's going to be like, I was saying there's like, maybe you do a Zamarak Saradomin warbands that are roaming the place. And that's a really good skilling method that, like wilderness warbands now, but they're constantly moving and they're different themes. And if they just slapped World Event 2 with new skins into the wilderness.
I was going to say, actually, we could just do that.
So pleased with that. If that was just a skilling method that was really good and really obnoxious, like, yes, cool, awesome, do it. Like, give it to me now. So that's what my hope is for that. Is that opt-in PvP is like just incredibly rewarding, but also something that is going to like bring people in to do it. To give that a little bit of life and make it not terribly punishing and terribly obnoxious when you die, right? That like, there's some faction-based thing to that. There's some mini-game to it. I don't know, right?
We have to consider
it system. But,
and that was the key, though. It was safe, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was just fun.
Well, if you died, it was annoying because you lost your event progress or whatever. Like, you got event progress. Like, there were reasons to PvP that were separate from, like, I don't know. So that would need a closer monocle, but we all look back fondly on World Event 2. That was PvP, I would say, done about as well as it's been done in RuneScape.
There's also the Darkscape angle, but that's an interesting other topic on its own.
Like, warbands are the only time that Warbands and the poor people who use the Abyss are the
And
only
the herb
times I
patch.
know of where there's some PvP and like activity heavily in the wilderness where people are actually intentionally fighting and doing things. Other than like the occasional PvP clan war in the world.
Yeah, and you know, based on where we're at with this, the design is probably set at this point, so it's going to be interesting for them
6 months out.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm sure they're working on some parts of it, but
so there might be time
regardless.
to push it in the right direction. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how all this pans out and what the community has to say.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah,
that one in particular is something that I'm looking forward to being able to see. So we'll see.
All right. So that concludes the live stream portion. Oddment Store and Treasure Hunter changes. Were these controversial this week?
Let's be very frank. They nerfed Oddments. And they nerfed Treasure Hunter. They removed the ability to choose your prize from Treasure Hunter. I think that was needed, personally. I know that it's not great. My alt got way too much experience from keys from quests, because I got 450 or whatever keys from quests, and I used them, and especially during the times when rewards were tripled or whatever it was, all the promos going on at the end of last year when I was playing that alt and doing those quests, Treasure Hunter was ridiculous and gave me there were way too many skills that I just straight up didn't train for 80 levels.
Yeah, okay. So Oddments were nerfed. They added the legendary water and fire lichens into the Oddment Store for 50,000 Oddments each, so you don't need to pay real money to get a legendary pet anymore. That's good.
You don't need to have Premier or Rune coins.
Yeah.
So big ups.
Removed randomized sales from keys, lamps, stars, and slightly lowered their prices, as well as doubling the daily purchase caps on these items as well, and consolidated various items in the Oddment Store into packs. So that's a nerf side.
That's the nerf,
I think.
Yeah.
Now,
because that's the thing, is that people only ever bought them when they were 75, 50 or 75% off, right? And so the price of them effectively for those people was that 75% off price. That was the price of a lamp. They just didn't get them very frequently.
Yeah.
This now allows you to spend them as intended, right? Where you get some XP when you want it. So.
UX-wise, added more details to the consumable items preview in the Oddment Store. New banner. Banners every day showing your daily purchase cap. Oddment Store now uses the preview screen of the Spotlight tab. Oddment Store item cards now show prices with separators at a cost of 1,000 or more. Increase the size of the card icons. Remove low-resolution card images. Stop the scroll position in the Oddment Store from resetting when you click on an item card. Standardized names and descriptions. Updated the order of items cards. And stopped items from spilling out their text area by truncating their names and adding an ellipsis for those over a certain length. So that's the UX side of it.
It looks better.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else to add for
Treasure Hunter. The multiple choice Treasure Hunter prize selection screen has been removed. There we go. Oddment prizes have been removed from Treasure Hunter. The number of portable items has been decreased. The confirm functionality was changed and will no longer ask for confirmation on white or yellow prizes, but will for higher tiers.
Sure.
The spring cleaner is now available on the loot table again if you don't own it. You can no longer get lucky items as a reward from super rare chests. So those are gone. I know those were controversial back in the day. Combat dummies no longer appear at the red or purple prize tiers. Spirit gems can be noted, and protein packs have been replaced with protein-specific items.
Just good general balance changes that were probably overdue because this content doesn't get the oversight, I think, from the dev team that other content does. Good balance pass, in my opinion. Just all around. The only thing I'll say is that I wish they'd changed those banners for the Oddment Store to tell you that things refresh daily, because if I was a new player, I would 100% think that I could only ever buy 60 lamps, and I would spend all of my Oddments to try to take advantage of that before whatever time, because there's no time set on those that's visible.
Janice, is there a negative here that we're missing? Because I feel like the community
Well, I mean, I think the nerf is more obvious on the treasure hunter side.
On the oddman side.
See, I don't look for what Daxie said about it in practical terms. Yes, but this is actually brilliant on Jagex's part because they're not actually raising the prices. They're just getting rid of a discount. I mean, this isn't the same as raising your prices and then putting something on sale.
This is the equivalent is like the effective price has gone up, right? The price that people are actually paying for them has changed in a way that is negative to people. And I agree. I agree that this is the way that they're just saying we're not doing these anymore, and that's fine. But people's oddments will go less far than they went before this update. Which is a good thing. And then again, same with Treasure Hunter, where you don't get to choose between 3 prizes every time you roll a prize. This is what you get. And so if you just want lamps and stars, or if you just want combat dummies or or protean packs, you can't select those. It removes a lot of the really heavy stacked up XP that you could get from Treasure Hunter and kind of tones that down or spreads it out more, which I like.
I mean, that is true. I wish there was another way because I think that the choice added to the palpability of Treasure Hunter, and
it's less of a loot box system.
Yeah. And so that was a step backwards, I think. And I don't know if that is masked in the way of, we're reducing XP and balancing things.
I think your part of it was actually the truth of the matter. I think that the balance thing, they did this because it was an easy way to balance. That's just saying this isn't a thing anymore because it wasn't a thing for every promo before anyways. But and you'll notice they've been running promos pretty constantly since then, so people don't notice. But yeah, they've I hear you. I think it's the other way around though. I think the balance changes this is the thing that we wanted to get out of it, but visually we're just going to make it so that you don't get I'm with you that I like the choice. I really heavily dislike loot box systems. But at least with this, it's especially since they removed those ultra rare prizes, there's not a ton of stuff that is just if you buy 500 keys, you go roll 1 or 2 items off of X table. You know, the X table on this is congratulations, you got 1,000 proteans now. Or maybe you'll hit the 200 mil, but you can get that stuff elsewhere. There's no uniques, there's no mounts like other games that have mounts or skins or pets or whatever. You don't get those anymore off of our ultra rare table. It's really just
you will when the next seasonal when the next quarterly rare comes in.
I mean, true, but they're not. It's not constant, right?
True.
And it wasn't like you were able to select your prize during any of those anyways. Right? You couldn't select to get the seasonal rare unless it was part of the promotion to pick one of these bonuses.
And I think part of the reason they did that, adding in the ability to choose your prize, was that whole idea of removing that blind chance, and that you're going to have a certain chance of getting something, but you're still going to have a choice of whether it's the lamp, the star, or the protean pack. So
right. Well, and that's that was the problem, is that it let people stack up 80 billion proteans way too easily and use them later. It let those kind of things that it was a little unbalanced, and they add some balance back into the game.
And
by removing the choice. And again, I hate the loot box system, but they've removed a lot of the nastiness about loot boxes and just said, you get X rolls, the rolls will give you on average these things, and that's fine.
And I'm trying to figure out where the negative in this is, because I don't see it. And if anybody listening to this does have the negative idea...
Shane, I can tell you. Okay. My alt has earned, again, through all of those keys that I got, I earned more than 99 construction just in proteans.
Okay, so it's just...
proteans every time I could.
So it's just that you're not going to get the same amount of XP that you would previously.
Well, I wanted stackable planks so that I could fully AFK construction training.
Fair enough.
I
don't have to deal with the butler or anything. So,
this will be a good experiment too, because if the purchase of keys goes down, then that tells you something. It tells you what people are buying Treasure Hunter and what they're spending.
Well, if they want those proteans now, they just buy more keys. And
then buy them from the Oddment store.
Well, they could, I suppose, but the oddments probably could just get spent on the Proteans if they want anyways, so... I mean, basically, most of the treasure hunter rewards are now available on the oddment store. Most of the regular ones, anyways, the commonly seen ones.
So then that raises the question: why not just sell bulk oddments?
Well, because then you actually let people buy what they want.
True.
And that they definitely make more money by having people roll on the wheel. I mean, that's the whole point of a loot box system.
Yeah.
They're making a palatable loot box system by not hiding things behind it.
Well, let's just be happy that they're not putting the new Tier 90 and Tier 95 weapons behind a loot box then, eh?
Oh, you want to talk about RuneScape's community being salty? That.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's top, hypothetical for
the top 1% DPSers in Stowe would like a word.
I figured that's where you were going, Shane.
Yeah. Pay to win, not our game.
No, please not an RS. Please not an RS.
I mean, you can already pay to max. It's expensive, but you can do it.
Yeah.
They removed a lot of that with this too, but whatever.
All right. Well, that's pretty much it then. I think with that we can move on to our picks of the week. I feel like that covered it well, and there's only one pick of the week this week, and it's something we've all discussed, and I'll let Thaxi take it away from here.
Yeah, I mean, it's an older article. I don't even know when this is from. It's a New York Times, 14. And it is 2014. Oh, it's not as old as I thought. Okay. It's a New York Times article. It's definitely U.S. centric. So if you're not from North America, maybe still interesting to you. It's the New York Times dialect quiz. The article title: "How Y'all Use and You Guys Talk." You can just Google New York Times dialect quiz. It'll come up, or you can find the link in the show notes on the RSBANDB website. But very simply, it asks you a series of questions that. I mean, how long? Tanis, you did it while we were doing our pre-show today, I think, probably.
Yeah.
Less than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Very seriously, maybe less than 5, but you can do it on your phone very easily. The interface for it is nice. And it's just ask you a series of questions, kind of like, what do you call a place where you drive through to pick up alcohol or to purchase alcohol? What do you call two places that are, diagonal from each other across an intersection? And it'll give you, options for those terms, or I don't have a term for this locally. Kind of a thing, and it then places you based on that. It'll build a heat map of the United States in terms of where your dialect is most like. And it seems to be relatively accurate for most people that I've seen take it.
Well, I'll let you guys go first, since obviously I'm not from the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, mine has actually tracked where I've lived. So I've lived both Northeast, Northwest, and Midwest of the United States and taken it from all three places. And it tends to, generally speaking, kind of track where I've been lately, the words that I most commonly associate with things. So, yeah.
I mean, it was spot on for me. I thought there was... Yeah, I thought there would be like some Southern influence, but I think that comes
very Midwest.
Yeah, I mean, well, and it's almost a triangle between like where I'm at and stuff too, so it's kind of funny. But I think it's because as you're growing up, the words that you use, this is kind of like judging that versus I think stuff I picked up from the South is just a draw and the way that I say them.
Yeah. This is your actual words and not your accent. So if you're interested about where in the United States you are most similar to in terms of the language that you use, it's a cool thing. It's just a nice little, it's a widget.
And for the record, mine was Buffalo, New York, Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Yeah. Couple of good, relatively kind of Midwestern boys here.
Yeah.
mine is relatively similar areas. Every time I take this, I bounce a little bit because I have lived in different parts of the country.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I was in Pennsylvania, it was kind of the New Jersey, New York, Philly kind of region. I think I got, and then, when I was up in Washington State, it was, Eastern Washington and Idaho was where it pinned me, which was fair because I'd been working in those areas over past summers. So I don't know. It's relatively accurate, it seems. So
there we go.
Good job to whoever.
There we go. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. We only have a few achievements this week, so I'll just rattle them off. On the 26th, we have Azadia with 99 summoning, Dad Engineer with 200 mil smithing XP, Aomi with 99 dungeoneering on the 24th, and Matt258 with 120 invention on April 21st. So there we have it.
Yeah! Woo! Awesome! You guys did so good! Yeah!
And with that, Tanis, what have you been up to on RS?
Well, I've been trying to not finish that boss, even though you guys have so generously offered to help me, and I will take you up on it, I think.
Good.
It's just, dragging myself away from this anvil, because
my man's been on a smithing tear.
I'm on a smithing tear, and oh my god, like I haven't even put a dent in my stock, and I'm making money. Well, I mean, I'm making like
a double XP is coming as well.
PBN money, like. Yeah, this is it's good stuff, and it's my style. Like, I like to be relaxed. I like to click, and I've been watching shows and stuff, and there's no other, this is the only game that I play that I can watch something and play.
Yep.
So yeah, I've been enjoying the smithing. It's gonna be a long road. That's all right, because I'm gonna be rich.
Are you making Elder Rune stuff? Or are you making Masterwork?
No, Elder Rune plate bodies.
Gotcha. Yeah. Gotcha. I wonder, because I always wonder how the Masterwork market goes around DXPs. So, like, are there a bunch of people doing Slayer with it trimmed who just like eat all of the regular Masterwork armor? Does it go way up in price? I don't know. I should look.
I'm not sure. The thing with Masterwork is it's so much work, but you get token XP for it, and so yeah.
I mean, Tennis, do you need smithing XP?
Oh well, yeah. I mean,
you're not at 120. You're not at 200 mil yet. I didn't know.
No.
One day.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I didn't do it when it was fast. So but that's okay. And I found like what I'm doing gives you kind of the most GP, but it's also like decent experience. It's not bad experience. So, I mean, it's not the top end with like, burial.
Yeah.
But this is, I mean, to make this kind of money and get this good of XP, yeah, I'm pretty happy.
And we also have a micro lesson on how to set up for that.
That's true.
And we both learned some things along the way about what to use and such. So that's on YouTube at youtube.com/RSBANDB. As for me this week, it's mainly just been raids and the Iaia skilling since that has come out, and finishing the act track down to the wire last week. I was on that, believe it or not. So that's what I've been up to. Oh boy, that was weird. But with that, it just felt nice being able to go to that environment and skill, and despite what people are saying that it took so long to get there, I really enjoyed it once we got the upgraded rates for it. So I'm happy with it. How about you, Thaxi?
Very much the same. Done a couple of raids this week. Logged on to do some. I'm maintaining some dailies, doing my invention, doing my getting some of just the odds and ends picked up. I guess the Iaia scaling is now going to be part of those regular every once in a while things, because then want that Master Quest cape back, hopefully before
the next content drop, right?
Well, not before the next content, but I want it done before the grace period's up, so I don't lose it.
True.
Or at least I don't lose it for terribly long.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's been my RuneScape has been a lot of that. Got my Ring of Vigour passive. Got that rolling. I guess I need to go and fix all my presets. I hadn't even noticed, but I noticed that I had an extra spot in my preset. I'm like, Yeah, because some of my presets do have extra spots, right? Because there's like intentionally, like if I'm going to, if it's a preset that I might use for like God Wars 2 or something, where I don't know if I'll need to eat a piece of food if I start with full HP before the first kill, and I want to pick up a drop or something, like I'll have an extra inventory spot. And it just like clicked in my brain that when I've been loading my raid presets this week, there's an empty spot because my vigor is not there. Which, oof, my rotation must be rusty if I didn't notice not having it.
Ooh.
But yeah, that's
yeah. Speaking of rotation, rusty on that the day before we did our most recent raid trip. So the cycle before that, I went. And then I did my first Reaper task in about 2.5 weeks because I kind of just took a break from them.
Sure.
And in terms of rustiness on the rotation, just, rustiness in general, I did the entire set of raids and the Carapac Reaper without activating the God Book, and I actually felt a DPS difference from that. So I was like, oh, that's what was happening with that.
7-8%, yeah.
Yep.
Of course. That's noticeable.
Yeah, it is.
That's 25,000 damage off your phase on Carapac.
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
I'm not making phase anymore.
I'm not supposed to be seeing the lightning phase.
Yeah, exactly.
I got it a couple times, but hey, nonetheless, just a good reminder of where we've been and where we're going. So thank you, everybody, for being here for this episode. You can find full show notes at update.rsbnb.com. And please do subscribe to the podcast on any number of podcast listeners out there. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, Amazon, Stitcher, and, of course, YouTube at youtube.com/RSBNB. There's where we post the episodes, the nibbles, and, of course, the micro lessons as such. The micro lesson this week on Vigor and Ultimate rotations. But I believe that's all we have for this week. So if everybody else is good, I think we can call this done, and we'll see you guys next week for another episode of RSBANDB Update. See you then, everyone. Take care.
See ya.
Ciao.